Good evening, and welcome to Mystic Bedtime Stories. I'm your narrator for tonight's journey, and I'm so glad you've chosen to spend these quiet evening hours with us. If this is your first time here, you've discovered a sanctuary where ancient wisdom meets restful sleep, where forgotten tales become the gentle bridge between your waking world and the realm of dreams. Tonight, we're embarking on something truly special. We're leaving behind the familiar myths of Greece and Rome, the well-traveled paths of Norse legends, and venturing into a world that few have explored in the depth it deserves. We're traveling to the vast forests and frozen plains of Eastern Europe, to a time before church bells rang across the countryside, before stone cathedrals rose from village squares. We're going back to when the wind itself carried messages from the gods, and every grove held sacred secrets. Take a moment now to settle yourself comfortably. Feel the weight of your body sinking into your bed, your breathing naturally slowing as you prepare to let go of the day's concerns. The worries that followed you home, the tasks waiting for tomorrow, the endless stream of thoughts that usually fill your mind, let them all drift away like morning mist over a quiet lake. Close your eyes and imagine, if you will, standing at the edge of an ancient forest. The trees before you are not the familiar oaks and maples of modern woodlands, but towering birches with bark white as fresh snow, their leaves whispering secrets in a language older than any human tongue. Between their silver trunks, shafts of golden sunlight filter down, illuminating patches of soft moss and delicate wildflowers that seem to glow with their own inner light. This is the world of the ancient Slavs, a civilization that stretched from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, from the Carpathian Mountains to the endless steppes of Russia. These were people who understood that the divine lived not in distant heaven, but in every stream that bubbled over stones, in every thunder clod that gathered on summer afternoons, in every flame that danced in the hearth after dark. Tonight, we'll meet their gods and spirits. We'll walk with Perun, the mighty thunder god whose hammer shaped the very heavens. We'll sit beside Makosh, the earth mother whose gentle hands wove the fabric of life itself. We'll listen to the whispered warnings of the Domovoi, the household spirits who watched over every family with loving vigilance. And we'll venture carefully into the deeper woods, where the mysterious Leshy guards ancient secrets, and where the haunting songs of the Rusalka drift across moonlit waters. But this isn't just a collection of old stories. These myths carry within them the deepest truths about how our ancestors understood the world, how they found their place in the grand tapestry of existence. They speak to something eternal in the human spirit, something that modern life often leaves hungry and unfulfilled. Tonight, we're feeding that hunger with tales that have been passed down through countless generations, stories that have survived kingdoms and conquests, stories that have outlasted the very civilizations that created them. As we begin this journey together, I want you to feel yourself becoming lighter, as if you're slowly being lifted from your physical surroundings and carried on gentle currents of story and imagination. You're safe here, completely safe, held by the ancient wisdom of these tales and the comfort of knowing that millions of people before you have found peace and rest in the embrace of mythology and wonder. The Slavic world we're entering was one where magic was not fantasy but daily reality, where the boundary between the seen and unseen was as thin as spider's silk. It was a world where a grandmother's blessing could protect a child from harm, where certain trees were doorways to other realms, where the spirits of ancestors lived just beyond the veil, always ready to offer guidance to those who knew how. To listen. So let yourself sink deeper now, deeper into relaxation, deeper into trust, deeper into the timeless space where stories live and breathe and work their gentle magic on hearts and minds. Let the familiar world fade away as we step together across the threshold of time, into the twilight realm where gods walked among mortals, where every sunset was a battle between light and darkness, and where every dawn brought the promise of miracles. Your breathing is slower now, natural and easy, like the rhythm of waves lapping against a distant shore. Your muscles are releasing their tension, one by one, as if warm, invisible hands are gently massaging away the stress and strain of modern living. You're here, but you're also there, in that ancient world of wonder, ready to receive the gifts that these old stories have to offer. Welcome to the forests of the Slavic gods. Welcome to a world where magic was as real as the morning dew, where spirits dwelt in every shadow, and where the greatest adventures began, not with a sword or a quest, but with the simple act of listening to the wind. Our story begins now, in the time before time, in the place beyond place, where the ancient Slavs first looked up at the sky and wondered who lived among the stars. Picture, if you can, a vast tapestry of land stretching across what we now call Eastern Europe. It's the year 800, long before the great cathedrals, before the rise of mighty kingdoms, before the world became divided by the borders we know today. The morning mist rises from countless rivers, the Dnieper, the Volga, the Danube, their waters reflecting a sky unmarked by the smoke of industry, untouched by the hurried pace of modern life. Here, scattered across this immense landscape like seeds, blown by a gentle wind, live the people we call the Slavs, but they don't think of themselves as one people. To them, they are the tribes of the forest and the river, the children of the earth and sky. Some live near the Baltic shores, where amber washes up on beaches like gifts from sea spirits. Others make their homes in the shadow of the Carpathian Mountains, where wolves still sing to the moon and ancient paths wind through valleys shrouded in perpetual twilight. Let your mind drift now to a typical Slavic village, nestled in a clearing carved from the endless forest. The houses are built of sturdy logs, their roofs thatched with golden straw that glows like honey in the afternoon sun. Smoke rises lazily from stone chimneys, carrying the scent of burning birch and the comforting aroma of barley bread baking in clay ovens. Gardens flourish behind wooden fences, heavy with cabbages and turnips, onions and herbs that will sustain families through the long, white winters. The people themselves move with the unhurried rhythm of those who live by the seasons rather than the clock. Men with weathered hands and knowing eyes tend fields of rye and barley, their work songs echoing across the grain as they harvest what the earth has generously provided. Women gather at the village well, their voices weaving together like threads in an invisible tapestry as they share news, wisdom, and the ancient stories that bind their community together. But these Slavs are not one uniform people. Like branches on a great tree, they have grown in different directions, shaped by the lands they inhabit. In the north and east, the Eastern Slavs have learned to navigate vast forests and river systems, becoming skilled hunters and traders. They know which mushrooms are safe to eat, which plants heal fever, and how to read the subtle signs that predict harsh winters or bountiful summers. To the west, their cousins have settled in lands that will one day become Poland and Bohemia. These Western Slavs build their villages near rivers and trade routes, learning the art of working with metals and crafting beautiful objects from clay and wood. They, too, honor the old gods, but their prayers are shaped by rolling hills and gentle valleys rather than the deep, dark forests of their eastern relatives. And in the south, where the mountains meet the sea, the southern Slavs have made their homes in a landscape of dramatic beauty. Here, where eagles soar between snow-capped peaks and Mediterranean breezes carry the scent of wild herbs, they've learned to be both mountain dwellers and coastal people, equally at home with flocks of sheep on high pastures and fishing boats on azure waters. What unites all these scattered tribes is something deeper than politics or territory. It's their understanding of the world as a living, breathing entity filled with consciousness and spirit. For the ancient Slavs, every element of nature possesses its own awareness, its own personality, its own sacred power. The oak tree in the village center isn't just wood and leaves, but a grandfather spirit, ancient and wise. The stream that provides water for drinking and washing isn't just flowing liquid, but a living entity with moods and preferences and the power to bless or curse. In this world, the boundary between the physical and spiritual realms is as thin as morning mist. A woman kneading bread isn't just preparing food, but participating in an ancient ritual of transformation, turning grain into sustenance through a process that mirrors the great mysteries of life and death and rebirth. A man carving bowls from birchwood isn't just crafting useful objects, but collaborating with the tree spirit, honoring the sacrifice of the living wood by creating something beautiful and lasting. Their homes reflect this sacred understanding. Every house has its corners where the domovoi, the household spirit, is honored with small offerings of bread and salt. The threshold of each door is protected by ancient symbols carved into the wood, keeping harmful spirits at bay while welcoming beneficial ones. The hearth fire is more than a source of warmth and cooking heat. It's the heart of the home, the sacred flame that connects the family to their ancestors and to the great cosmic fires that burn in the heavens. Children in these villages grow up hearing the voices of the forest, learning to recognize the difference between the wind in the earth, leaves, and the whispered messages of tree spirits. They know which paths through the woods are safe and which might lead them into the realm of the Leshy, the forest guardian who can be both protector and trickster. They learn that water has memory, that stones can hold wishes, and that certain flowers bloom only for those who approach them with pure hearts. The rhythm of their lives follows the great wheel of the seasons, each turning marked by festivals and rituals that honor the changing relationships between earth and sky, darkness and light, growth and rest. Spring brings ceremonies of awakening, when the frozen earth stirs back to life and the spirits of growing things shake off winter's sleep. Summer's height is celebrated with fires and dancing, honoring the sun's power and the abundance of the growing season. As autumn arrives with its harvest of grains and fruits, the people gather to give thanks not just for the food that will sustain them, but for the continuing partnership between human and divine, mortal and spirit. And when winter's grip tightens over the land, bringing long nights and howling winds, they don't retreat in defeat, but honor this season too, understanding that the darkness is necessary for the light, that rest is the precursor to renewal. These are the people into whose world we're stepping tonight. They live close to the earth, close to the spirits, close to the great mysteries that modern life has taught us to forget. They understand that humans are not separate from nature, but part of its vast, interconnected web of consciousness and care. Feel yourself now becoming one of them, settling into their slower rhythm, their deeper awareness. Let your breathing match the gentle pace of their days, your heartbeat synchronize with the ancient drums that echo through their festival nights. You belong here, in this world where magic is as natural as morning dew, where gods walk among mortals, and where every story carries the power to heal and transform. Soon we'll meet their gods and spirits personally, but for now, simply rest in this understanding of who they were. These ancient Slavs, who saw the divine in every dewdrop and heard the music of the spheres in every evening breeze. You are safe. In their world, welcomed by their wisdom, ready to receive the gifts their stories have to offer. Now, as you rest comfortably in this ancient world, let your awareness drift upward, beyond the village rooftops, beyond the swaying tops of the birch trees, up into the vast dome of sky that stretches endlessly above the Slavic lands. Here, in the realm of clouds and wind, lightning and storm, dwells the mightiest of all the Slavic gods. His name is Perun, and even to whisper it is to feel the rumble of distant thunder, to sense the electric charge that fills the air before a summer storm. Perun is the Sky Father, the wielder of lightning, the divine blacksmith who forges thunderbolts in the fires of heaven and hurls them earthward with the strength of his mighty arm. Picture him now, as the ancient Slavs did when they looked up at storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Perun stands tall as a mountain, his beard flowing like silver rivers, crackling with the energy of 1,000 storms. His eyes flash with the blue-white fire of lightning, and when he laughs, the sound rolls across the heavens like thunder echoing through vast canyons. In his powerful hands, he holds his greatest treasure, his warhammer forged from meteoric iron and blessed with the power to split mountains and summon rain. Perun is more than just a god of storms and violence. He is the divine protector, the guardian of justice, the one who ensures that the natural order remains balanced and true. When drought threatens the crops, it is Perun who brings the life-giving rains. When evil spirits trouble the innocent, it is Perun's lightning that drives them back to the shadows. When oaths are broken and justice perverted, it is Perun's thunder that announces divine judgment. The ancient Slavs built their understanding of Perun around the great oak trees that dominated their forests. These mighty giants, some living for over 1,000 years, became Perun's earthly temples. Their branches reached toward heaven like prayers made visible, while their roots delved deep into the sacred earth, connecting sky and soil in perfect harmony. When lightning struck an oak tree, the Slavs didn't see destruction but blessing. The wood from such trees became sacred, carved into protective amulets and ritual objects that carried Perun's power. Let yourself imagine standing beneath one of these ancient oaks on a summer evening, just as the first storm clouds begin to gather in the western sky. The air grows heavy with moisture and possibility. Birds fall silent, sensing the approaching power. Even the insects pause their evening songs, as if the entire forest holds its breath in anticipation. Then comes the first rumble, distant but unmistakable, the voice of Perun awakening in his celestial forge. The leaves of the oak begin to whisper secrets to each other, their silver undersides flashing in the strange electric light that precedes the storm. You can feel the hair on your arms rising as the very air around you becomes charged with divine energy. The wind picks up, carrying with it the scent of rain from places far away, the fresh, clean smell of water blessed by its journey through Perun's domain. Lightning flickers in the distance, brief glimpses of the god's hammer at work, splitting the darkness with blazing silver threads that connect earth to heaven in moments of brilliant revelation. For the ancient Slavs, these storms were not merely weather but sacred theater, divine drama playing out across the stage of the sky. They would gather in their homes, children pressed close to their grandparents' sides, and listen to the stories of Perun's great battles, his eternal struggle against the forces of chaos and darkness. In their mythology, Perun rides across the Joe heavens in a chariot pulled by a great he-goat, its hooves striking sparks from the clouds as it gallops through the storm. Sometimes he appears as a mighty warrior, armor gleaming like polished silver, his red beard streaming behind him as he charges into battle against the demons of drought and discord. Other times, he takes the form of an enormous eagle, his wings spanning from horizon to horizon, his fierce cry the thunder that announces his presence to all who dwell below. The Slavs understood that Perun's power was not arbitrary or cruel, but deeply purposeful. His lightning strikes were surgical in their precision, targeting only what needed to be cleansed or transformed. A tree struck by Perun's fire became blessed, its wood imbued with protective power. A field touched by his lightning would yield exceptional harvests, as if the god's energy had awakened every seed to its highest potential. Warriors particularly honored Perun, seeing in him the divine model of righteous strength. Before battle, they would offer prayers and sacrifices to the thunder god, asking not just for victory, but for the wisdom to fight, only when fighting was just the courage to stand against overwhelming odds. and the strength to protect those who could not protect themselves. But Perun's care extended far beyond the battlefield. Farmers looked to him for the rain that would nourish their crops, timing their planting by the rhythm of his storms. Craftsmen invoked his name when working with fire and metal, understanding that the God who forged lightning in heaven's forge could bless their earthly work with divine skill. Even children learned to see Perun as a protector, the great father in the sky who watched over them with loving vigilance. The sound of his approach became a source of comfort rather than fear. When thunder rolled across the land, mothers would tell their little ones that Perun was moving his great furniture around his heavenly home, rearranging things for the benefit of all who lived below. The flash of lightning was his smile, blessing the earth with divine attention. The rain that followed was his gift, the tears of joy he shed for the beauty of the world he protected. As you rest here now, listening to this ancient story, feel yourself becoming part of this sacred understanding. Let the memory of every thunderstorm you've ever experienced transform in your awareness, becoming not just meteorological phenomena, but glimpses of divine presence, moments when the boundary between heaven and earth grows thin enough for majesty to shine through. Perhaps you can almost hear it now, that distant rumble that might be thunder, or might be Perun's great voice calling across the centuries, reminding you that power and protection are always present, always available to those who know how to listen for the whisper of the divine in the natural world. Feel your body relaxing deeper into sleep as Perun's presence settles over you like a protective blanket, knowing that somewhere above the clouds, a great sky father continues his eternal watch, his hammer ready to defend what is good and true, his lightning prepared to illuminate any darkness that might threaten your peace. The thunder grows quieter now, more distant, as if Perun's chariot is moving on to other realms, other skies that need his attention. But his blessing remains, settling over you like gentle rain, like the satisfied silence that follows a cleansing storm, when the air smells fresh and new and full of infinite possibility. As Perun's thunder fades into the distance, feel your awareness gently descending from the vast sky realm back down to the earth below. But this is not a return to the ordinary world. Instead, you're being drawn into an even deeper mystery one that lies not above but beneath, not in the dramatic flash of lightning, but in the quiet, persistent miracle of growing things. Here, in the rich, dark soil of the Slavic lands, in the gentle curves of rolling hills and the patient cycle of seasons, dwells another divine presence. Her name is Makosh, and she is everything that Perun is not, yet perfectly complementary to his power. Where he is thunder, she is whisper. Where he is the dramatic storm, she is the quiet rain that soaks into waiting earth. Where he protects, through strength, she nurtures through abundance. Mokosh is the Great Mother, the Earth Goddess, the divine feminine principle that transforms seed into harvest, water into wine, raw clay into vessels of beauty and utility. She is the patron of women, the guardian of domestic arts, the gentle presence that turns a house into a home and makes a family into something sacred. Let yourself sink deeper into relaxation as you imagine walking through a Slavic village on a peaceful morning, just as the sun rises over the eastern hills. The air is soft and warm, carrying the scent of fresh bread and blooming flowers. From every cottage comes the gentle sound of women's voices, weaving together in the ancient rhythms of daily work, transformed into prayer. In one doorway, you see a grandmother teaching her granddaughter the art of spinning flax into linen thread. Her weathered hands guide the young fingers with infinite patience, showing how to draw the fibers out long and fine, how to twist them with just the right tension, to create thread strong enough to last for generations. This is more than craft instruction. This is the passing down of Makosh's wisdom, the understanding that all creation begins with the patient transformation of raw materials into something both beautiful and useful. Feel the fiber, the grandmother whispers. Listen to what it wants. To become. Every thread knows its destiny. Our job is simply to help it find its way. The child nods solemnly, already beginning to understand that weaving is a form of magic, that every piece of cloth carries within it the blessings of thee. Goddess who governs all creative transformation. Move on through the village, and everywhere you see Makoshi's influence. In the garden behind one cottage, a woman kneels among rows of herbs and vegetables, her hands dark with rich earth as she tends plants that will feed and heal her family through the coming year. She doesn't just garden. She participates in the great collaboration between human intention and divine growth, between earthly care and celestial blessing. Her fingers stroke the leaves of her basil plants with the tenderness of a mother touching her child's face. She whispers to her tomatoes, encouraging them to grow strong and sweet. She knows which phases of the moon favor planting and which favor harvesting, when to water and when to wait, how to read the subtle signs that tell her what each plant needs to thrive. This is Makoshi's teaching, the understanding that the earth is not something to be conquered or exploited, but something to be partnered with, collaborated with, loved into abundance. The goddess shows her followers that every act of nurturing, whether of plants or children or community, is a sacred act that helps maintain the balance of the world. In the village square, women gather around the well that provides water for all. But this is not just a utilitarian meeting place. The well is one of Makoshi's sacred sites, a place where the earth's hidden waters rise to meet human need. The women know that their conversations here, their shared stories and mutual support, are as important as the water they draw. They are weaving the social fabric that holds their community together, creating the invisible networks of care and connection that allow their village to thrive. One woman arrives carrying a newborn baby, and immediately the others surround her. With gentle attention, they examine the child with knowing eyes, offering advice about feeding and sleeping, sharing remedies for common ailments, passing down the accumulated wisdom of countless mothers who have raised healthy children in this place. This too is Makoshi's work, the understanding that raising children is not a solitary burden, but a communal blessing, that every child belongs not just to their birth parents, but to the entire village. As the seasons turn, Makoshi's presence becomes even more apparent. In spring, she is the force that calls seeds from their winter sleep, that summons green shoots from the dark earth, that turns the world from brown and gray to every possible shade of growing green. Women celebrate her awakening with special rituals, dancing in newly planted fields, weaving flower crowns that honor both human beauty and natural abundance. Summer finds Makosh at her most generous, her energy flowing through every growing thing. The fields heavy with grain, the orchards bending under the weight of fruit, the gardens overflowing with vegetables and herbs, all speak of her boundless creativity. Women gather at twilight to sing the old songs that honor the goddess, their voices rising like incense to thank her for the abundance that surrounds them. But perhaps Makosh is most beloved during the harvest season, when her year-long work comes to fruition. In every sheaf of grain, every basket of apples, every jar of preserved vegetables, the goddess has written her signature of love and provision. The harvest festivals become great celebrations of gratitude, acknowledgments that human work and divine blessing have collaborated to create abundance that will sustain the community through the dark months ahead. Even in winter, when the earth sleeps under blankets of snow, Makoshi's presence continues. In the warm cottage rooms where women spin and weave by firelight, her spirit guides their hands. In the root cellars where preserved foods wait patiently for spring, her foresight ensures survival. In the stories told around winter hearths, her wisdom passes from generation to generation, keeping alive the knowledge that will bloom again when the snow melts. The ancient Slavs understood that Makoshi's gifts extended far beyond material abundance. She was also the goddess of fate, the divine weaver who spun the threads of destiny on her cosmic loom. Every choice made, every path taken, every consequence that followed was part of the great pattern she was constantly creating and adjusting, ensuring that the threads of individual lives wove together into a tapestry of meaning and purpose. Women approaching childbirth would pray to Makash, asking not just for safe delivery, but for wisdom to raise children who would contribute to the greater good. Young girls learning domestic arts would invoke her name, understanding that mastering these skills was preparation for participating in the great work of creation and nurturing that keeps the world alive and growing. God, feel yourself now wrapped in Makasha's gentle embrace, her earth-warm presence surrounding you like the softest blanket, like the security of a perfectly appointed home where every need is anticipated and met with love. Let her patient, nurturing energy soak into your being like rain into thirsty soil, like the quiet satisfaction of work well done, like the deep contentment that comes from knowing you are part of something larger and more beautiful than yourself. Rest in her abundance, in the understanding that you are supported and cherished, that your own efforts to create and nurture and care for others are part of the great collaboration between human and divine that keeps the world turning, keeps life flowing, keeps love growing in countless small and necessary ways. As sleep draws nearer, feel Makasha's hands smoothing away the tensions of the day, her voice humming the ancient lullabies that have soothed countless generations into peaceful rest, her presence promising that tomorrow will bring new opportunities to participate in the eternal miracle of growth and transformation and love. Now, as Makasha's gentle lullaby carries you deeper into the realm of dreams, let your awareness drift even further from the waking world. We're leaving behind the sunlit villages and fertile fields, descending below the roots of even the mightiest oak trees down into the mysterious realm that lies beneath all things, the shadowy domain where the most ancient and complex of all Slavic gods holds court. His name is Vels, and he is neither the dramatic protector like Perun, nor the nurturing mother like Makash. Vels is something older, stranger, more difficult to understand, yet equally essential to the great cosmic balance. He is the god of the underworld, the master of hidden waters, the guardian of secrets that lie buried in the dark earth. He is wisdom that comes through loss, wealth that grows in darkness, and the mysterious force that ensures death is always followed by rebirth. Picture him now, not as the ancients sometimes feared him, but as they ultimately came to understand him. Vels appears as an enormous serpent, his scales shimmering with all the colors that exist in deep water, in underground caverns, in the space between sleeping and waking. His eyes hold the ancient wisdom of stones, the patient knowledge of roots that have grown for centuries in darkness, the profound understanding that comes only to those who have traveled through death and emerged transformed. Sometimes he takes the form of a great bear, moving through the deepest parts of the forest with the quiet confidence of one who knows every secret path, every hidden spring, every cave, where treasures both material and spiritual lie, waiting for those brave enough to seek them. Other times he appears as a wise old man with a beard like flowing water, his robes the color of rich earth, his voice carrying the gentle authority of deep rivers flowing toward distant seas. But Vels is most often seen in his serpent form, coiled around the roots of the world tree, the cosmic axis that connects earth to heaven. From this position, he guards the sacred waters that flow beneath all things, the underground rivers that nourish the roots of every growing plant, the hidden springs that ensure life continues even in the driest seasons. Let yourself imagine descending into Velus's realm, not with fear, but with the respectful curiosity of one seeking wisdom. Picture yourself following a narrow path that leads down from a moonlit forest clearing, winding between moss-covered stones and ancient tree roots that form natural steps in the earth. The air grows cooler as you descend, thick with the scent of rich soil and underground waters, alive with the subtle sounds of a world most people never see. Here, in the spaces between tree roots, you glimpse the flash of silver scales as Vels move through his domain. The sound is not threatening, but welcoming, like the whisper of water over stones, like the gentle rustle of leaves returning to earth in autumn. This is the sound of transformation, of things returning to their source so they can be born again in new forms. In the Slavic understanding, Vels presides over all the wealth that lies hidden in the earth. Not just gold and silver, though those, too, are his domain, but the true treasures that sustain life, the rich soil that feeds plants, the underground waters that prevent drought, the coal and peat that provide warmth through bitter winters. Miners and farmers alike honor Vels, understanding that their work requires his cooperation, his willingness to share the earth's bounty with those who approach it with proper respect. But Velas's gifts extend far beyond material wealth. He is also the god of poetry and music, the divine inspiration that flows from the deepest wells of creativity. In the Slavic world, the greatest bards and storytellers are said to receive their gifts from Vels, their words carrying the power to transform hearts and minds, just as the god himself transforms seed into harvest, or into precious metal, death into new life. Feel yourself settling deeper into this underground realm, your breathing slowing to match the patient rhythm of underground waters, your heartbeat synchronizing with the slow pulse of the earth itself. Here, in Velas's domain, time moves differently. What seems like moments might be hours. What feels like hours might be the work of decades. This is the realm where all transformations begin, where nothing is ever truly lost, only changed into new forms. The ancient Slavs understood that Vels represented a crucial aspect of existence that more cheerful gods could not address. He was the one who helped them make sense of loss, who showed them that death was not ending but transformation, that every grief eventually becomes the fertile soil in which new joy can grow. When children asked why good people sometimes suffered, why crops sometimes failed, why beloved animals grew old and died, it was Velas's wisdom that provided answers. In his serpent form, he shed his skin regularly, demonstrating the great truth that nothing in nature remains static. Everything that lives must periodically release its old form to grow into something larger and more magnificent. The snake that emerges from molting is not a different creature, but the same snake transformed, carrying all its accumulated wisdom into a form better suited to its continued growth. This became a powerful metaphor for human life as well. The Slavs learned to see their own difficulties and losses as periods of molting, times when they were shedding old versions of themselves to make room for growth they couldn't yet imagine. A farmer who lost his crop to flood learned to see it as Velas's invitation to try new methods, to develop deeper wisdom about working with the earth's rhythms. A woman who lost a child learned to channel her grief into deeper compassion for all mothers, becoming a source of comfort and strength for her entire community. Velas's connection to water runs deeper than simple dominion over underground streams. Water, in the Slavic understanding, was the medium through which all transformations occurred. Seeds needed water to sprout, clay needed water to become pottery, grain needed water to become bread or beer. Even human tears were recognized as sacred water, the physical manifestation of emotional transformation, the body's way of releasing what no longer served so that healing could begin. In winter, when Perun's storms ceased and the earth lay dormant, under snow, it was Vels who remained active in the depths, quietly preparing for spring's return. The underground waters continued to flow, carrying nutrients to sleeping roots, ensuring that when warmth returned, the earth would be ready to explode into new life. This made Vels a god of hope as much as mystery, a reminder that even in the darkest times, transformation was already beginning in places too deep to see. The relationship between Vels and Perun which we'll explore more deeply soon, was not one of simple opposition, but of necessary collaboration. Where Perun brought the dramatic rains that awakened surface life, Vels provided the steady underground waters that sustained growth. Where Perun's lightning cleared away the old and stagnant, Velus's patient transformation turned debris into fertile soil for new growth. As you rest here now in the gentle darkness of Velius's realm, feel yourself wrapped in the profound peace that comes from understanding that you are part of an eternal cycle of growth and rest, expansion and consolidation, building up and breaking down and building again. Let the god's serpent coils enfold you, not with constriction, but with the secure embrace of deep roots, of underground waters, of the patient earth that supports all life. Feel your own capacity for transformation awakening, your willingness to release what no longer serves you, your trust in the hidden processes that are already preparing the soil of your life for new growth you cannot yet imagine. Rest in Velus's ancient wisdom, the understanding that every ending is a beginning, every loss of space being cleared for something precious to emerge. Sleep comes easier now, natural as the flow of underground rivers, peaceful as the quiet spaces. Between tree roots, where treasures wait patiently to be discovered by those who know how to look with eyes of wonder and respect. As you drift deeper into the realm of dreams, where underground waters meet celestial fires, where the boundaries between earth and sky dissolve into something larger and more mysterious, you find yourself witnessing the most ancient of all stories, the cosmic drama that plays out endlessly across the stage of existence itself. This is the eternal dance between Perun and Vels, between sky and earth, between the forces of order and the powers of transformation. But do not imagine this as a simple conflict between good and evil, for the ancient Slavs understood something far more profound. They saw this as the necessary tension that keeps the world alive, the divine interplay that ensures the seasons turn, the rains fall, and life continues to flourish in all its magnificent complexity. Picture the scene as it unfolds in the realm beyond ordinary time, where myths live and breathe and shape the very fabric of reality. Above, Perun stands in his celestial fortress, his hammer crackling with electricity, his eyes scanning the earth below with the protective vigilance of a father watching over his children. Below, in the depths of root and stone and flowing water, Vels coils through his underground kingdom, his ancient wisdom seeing patterns and possibilities that stretch across centuries. The battle begins, as it always does, with Velus's restless energy stirring in the depths. Perhaps it is time for change, time for the old patterns to be broken and reformed. Perhaps the earth has grown too comfortable, too settled in its ways. With the patient persistence of flowing water, Vels begins to push upward, his influence seeping through soil and stone, calling to the seeds sleeping in winter earth, awakening forces that have been dormant through the cold months. But Perun, ever watchful, senses this stirring from his heavenly realm. The Sky Father knows that change, while necessary, must come at the right time and in the right measure. Too much transformation too quickly can destroy rather than renew. So he gathers his storm clouds around him like a warrior donning armor, preparing to meet Velus's challenge with the full force of celestial power. The first rumble of thunder announces the beginning of their cosmic contest. Feel it now, not as a distant sound, but as a vibration that moves through your entire being, connecting you to this primordial struggle. This is not mere weather, but the heartbeat of existence itself, the rhythm that drives all growth and change and renewal. Vels rises from the depths in the form of a great dragon, his serpentine body winding up through the roots of the world tree, his scales glittering with the dark beauty of deep waters and rich earth. He moves with the inexorable force of a river in flood, carrying with him all the accumulated power of winter's rest, all the potential energy stored in frozen ground and sleeping seeds. From the heights of heaven, Perun hurls his first lightning bolt, a spear of pure celestial fire that illuminates the entire world in its blazing passage. Where it strikes, old barriers are shattered, frozen streams begin to flow, and the first green shoots of spring push boldly through the softening earth. This is not destruction, but liberation, the Sky Father's gift of energy that transforms Velus's potential into actual growth. But Veles is not so easily subdued. He strikes back with floods and storms of his own, underground waters bursting forth in springs and geysers, transforming the landscape in ways both beautiful and terrifying. Rivers change their courses. New lakes appear where valleys once lay, and the very shape of the land shifts and flows like something alive and dreaming. The battle rages across the sky and through the earth, a cosmic symphony of creation and destruction, order and chaos, structure and transformation. Each thunder crack represents another exchange in their eternal dialogue, each flash of lightning another moment, when the boundaries between heaven and earth become transparent, allowing divine energy to pour through and revitalize the world. Watch now as the conflict reaches its crescendo. Perun, his beard streaming like silver fire, raises his hammer high above his head and brings it down with such force that the sound echoes across all the worlds at once. The blow does not destroy Veles, but drives him back down into the depths. Not in defeat, but in completion, like an actor taking his bow at the end of a perfectly performed scene. And in that moment of Velus's descent, the sky opens and the rains begin. These are not ordinary rains, but the tears of gods, a sacred water that carries blessings from heaven to earth, that brings life to every seed, every plant, every creature that depends on the collaboration between sky and soil. The drought is broken, the earth drinks deeply, and the great cycle of growth begins anew. But here is the profound wisdom that the ancient Slavs understood. This battle is never truly won or lost. It is not meant to end, but to continue, each repetition bringing new gifts, new growth, new possibilities for life to flourish in forms both familiar and wonderfully strange. Perun's victory is temporary, just as Velus's challenge was necessary. Next season, next year, the dance will begin again, and the world will be renewed once more. Feel yourself now as part of this eternal rhythm, your own life participating in the great cosmic dance between stability and change, between the need for order and the necessity of growth. Like the earth itself, you contain both Perun's strength and Velus's wisdom, both the power to maintain what serves you and the courage to transform what no longer fits your truest nature. In your own daily existence, you have witnessed countless small versions of this cosmic battle. Every time you have struggled between staying safe in familiar patterns and risking growth into something new, you have participated in the eternal dance of Perun and Veles. Every time you have chosen to let go of what no longer serves you, allowing it to be transformed into fertile soil for new dreams, you have honored both gods equally. The ancient Slavs built their entire agricultural calendar around this mythic pattern. They knew that the earth needed both Perun's protective order and Velus's transformative chaos, both the Sky Father's life-giving rains and the Earth Serpent's patient underground work. Their festivals celebrated not just the return of spring, but their understanding of their own place in the great cosmic rhythm. As the battle fades into the gentle aftermath, as the thunder grows distant and the rain settles into the steady, nourishing pattern that will feed the earth through the growing season, feel yourself settling too into the deep peace that follows. Transformation. You have witnessed something eternal and profound, something that connects your individual story to the greatest story of all, the endless collaboration between heaven and earth that keeps existence itself alive and growing. Let the memory of this cosmic battle comfort you now, reminding you that all conflict serves a purpose, that all struggle leads eventually to new growth, that even in your most difficult moments, you are participating in something sacred and necessary and ultimately beneficial. The gods themselves engage in this eternal dance of challenge and resolution, and you are part of their divine choreography. Rest now in the quiet that follows thunder, in the satisfaction that comes after good rain, in the deep knowing that tomorrow's dawn will reveal a world made new by the night's divine drama, fresh and green and full of possibilities that did not exist before the sky and earth remembered how to dance together once again. As the echoes of that cosmic battle fade into the gentle silence of night, and as you find yourself drawn away from the vast dramas of sky and earth toward something more intimate and personal, let your awareness settle into a different kind of sacred space. We're leaving behind the realm of mighty gods and their eternal struggles, coming home to the quieter, but no less profound mysteries that dwell in the spaces humans have made their own. Here, in the warm glow of candlelight behind cottage windows, in the familiar comfort of well-worn threshold stones and carefully tended hearth fires, live the spirits that the ancient Slavs knew as their most constant companions. These are not distant deities who speak in thunder and lightning, but gentle presences who share the intimate details of daily life, who care about whether the bread rises properly and the children sleep peacefully through the night. Chief among these beloved spirits is the domovoi, whose name means simply the one who belongs to the house. Picture him now as the Slavic families did, not as a fearsome supernatural entity, but as a cherished member of the household, small in stature but enormous in importance. He stands no taller than a young child, his beard soft and gray as chimney smoke, his eyes twinkling with the accumulated wisdom of countless families he has watched over through the generations. The domovoi's appearance shifts with his mood and the needs of the moment. Sometimes he looks like a miniature old man dressed in the simple clothes of a peasant farmer, his hands calloused from work, but gentle as a grandfather's touch. Other times he appears more spirit than flesh, a warm presence felt rather than seen, a loving energy that moves through the house like a blessing made visible only in its effects. Let yourself imagine entering one of those ancient Slavic homes. On a winter evening, when snow lies deep outside and the wind whistles around the eaves. As you step across the threshold, you can feel it immediately, the sense that this is not just a building but a living entity, animated by love and care, and the accumulated prayers of all who have found shelter here. The fire in the hearth burns with unusual warmth, as if the wood knows its higher purpose is not just to heat, but to create the sacred center around which family life revolves. The shadows in the corners seem friendly rather than ominous, alive, with a presence that watches over everything with benevolent attention. Even the very walls seem to breathe with contentment, as if the house itself is a living creature that takes pleasure in providing shelter and comfort to its human inhabitants. This is the domovoi's doing. He is the spirit that transforms a mere structure of wood and stone into a true home, the invisible caretaker who ensures that love grows stronger within these walls, that children feel safe enough to dream peacefully, that parents find rest from their labors, that grandparents' wisdom is honored and preserved. But the domovoi is not just a passive presence. He is an active participant in the life of the household, a collaborator in all the small but essential tasks that keep a family thriving. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the household sleeps, he moves through the rooms with the silent efficiency of long practice, tending the fire so it never dies completely, checking that doors are properly latched against winter winds, ensuring that the stores of grain and preserved foods remain fresh and abundant. The ancient Slavs understood that maintaining a good relationship with their domovoi required more than simple acknowledgement. Like any member of the family, he needed to feel appreciated, cared for, included in the daily rhythms of domestic life. So they developed beautiful traditions of hospitality that honored his presence and secured his continued protection. Each night, The women of the household would set out small offerings for the domovoi: a bit of bread still warm from the oven, a cup of fresh milk, a small portion of whatever soup had simmered over the fire that day. These gifts were placed in corners sacred to the house spirit, often near the hearth or beside the threshold, accompanied by gentle words of gratitude for his constant care. "Thank you, grandfather," they would whisper into the listening darkness, "for keeping our home safe and warm. Thank you for watching over our children's sleep, for helping our bread to rise, for keeping harmony among us all." These were not empty rituals, but genuine expressions of love and appreciation, recognition that the domovoi's work was both real and essential to the family's well-being. In return, the domovoi offered protection that went far beyond the merely physical. Yes, he guarded against thieves and warned of fires, but his deeper gift was the creation of an atmosphere where love could flourish. Houses blessed by a contented domovoi were known for their unusual harmony, their abundance that seemed to stretch far beyond what practical resources should have allowed, their ability to welcome strangers and make them feel instantly at home. Children growing up in such houses developed a special relationship with their domovoi. They learned to sense his presence in the warm spot beside the stove where he liked to rest during cold afternoons, in the gentle creak of floorboards that meant he was making his nightly rounds. In the way, their most treasured toys never seemed to get truly lost, but always turned up in places where they could easily be found. Some children, those with particularly sensitive hearts and open minds, could actually see their domovoi, catching glimpses of him as he went about his work. They described him as having the kindest eyes, full of the same love they saw in their grandparents' faces, and hands that moved with the same gentle competence their mothers showed when kneading bread or mending torn clothing. But the domovoi was not only benevolent. He had strong opinions about how a household should be run, and families who ignored his preferences did so at their own risk. He despised laziness, cruelty, and dishonesty, and had various ways of expressing his displeasure with family members who violated the sacred trust of the home. A house where the domovoi had become angry was an uncomfortable place indeed. Milk would sour inexplicably, bread would fail to rise, small items would go missing for weeks at a time, and a general atmosphere of discord would settle over the family like a suffocating blanket. But even then, his anger was more like that of a disappointed grandfather than a vengeful enemy. He wanted the family to return to the ways of kindness and cooperation that made a house into a true home. The remedy was always the same: sincere apology, genuine effort to reform whatever behaviors had caused the problem, and renewed attention to the small courtesies that honored the domovoi's presence. Most families found that their house spirit was remarkably forgiving, quick to restore his blessings once he saw that his humans were trying to live up to their highest potential. As you rest here now, in your own modern home, feel the possibility that something like the domovoi might still be present, still watching over the spaces where humans create shelter and share love. Perhaps that sense of unusual comfort you sometimes feel in certain rooms, that feeling of being welcomed and protected, is evidence that the old spirits have not entirely departed from the world. Let yourself imagine your own household blessed by such a presence, your daily routines elevated to sacred acts by the attention of a being who sees the spiritual significance in every gesture of care, every moment of tenderness, every choice to create beauty and harmony in the spaces where you live. Feel the deep peace that comes from knowing you are not alone in your care for home and family, that invisible hands are working alongside your own to create an atmosphere of love and protection, that the ancient traditions of hospitality and gratitude can still invoke blessings that make ordinary houses into sanctuaries of the heart. Sleep comes easier now, surrounded by this sense of loving protection, this understanding that home is not just a place, but a state of being, a collaboration between seen and unseen, a partnership between human intention and spiritual grace that transforms any space into a refuge where souls can rest and spirits can thrive. The ancient Slavic world was never truly empty. Between the villages, beyond the cleared fields where families tended their crops, lay vast stretches of primordial forest that seemed to breathe with their own mysterious life. These were not merely collections of trees and undergrowth, but living cathedrals where shadow and light danced together, where every rustling leaf whispered secrets older than memory itself. Close your eyes now, and let yourself drift toward these ancient woodlands. Feel the soft moss beneath your feet, still damp with morning dew. The air here carries the deep, earthy scent of fallen logs slowly returning to soil, mixed with the sweet fragrance of wild honeysuckle climbing toward patches of filtered sunlight dot in. These sacred groves, the Slavic people knew they were never truly alone. The forests were inhabited by beings as old as the first seed that ever took root in Slavic soil. These were not the gods of thunder and sky, but intimate spirits who lived close to the earth, who understood the language of growing things and the secrets that water carries as it flows from spring to stream to river. The most powerful of these woodland guardians was known as the Leshy. Picture him now as the ancient storytellers did, a figure both magnificent and unsettling, as changeable as the forest itself. Sometimes he appeared as a tall man, dressed in the colors of bark and leaves, his beard woven with moss and small twigs, his eyes the deep green of pine needles in shadow. Other times he might shrink himself to the size of a mushroom, or grow as tall as the greatest oak, his head brushing against the canopy, where eagles made their nests. The Leshy was neither good nor evil in the way that humans understand such things. He was the forest's own consciousness given form, protective and nurturing to those who approached his realm with respect, but mischievous or even dangerous to those who brought greed or carelessness into his domain. Hunters who took only what they needed for their families might find their paths made smooth and their arrows guided true. But those who killed for sport or harvested without gratitude might discover their familiar trails leading in circles, their compass spinning wildly, their very sense of direction stolen away by the forest's guardian spirit. Children in Slavic villages grew up, hearing whispered stories of travelers who had encountered the Leshy. There was the merchant who became lost for 3 days and nights, walking in endless loops through trees that seemed to shift and change when he wasn't looking directly at them. Only when he finally sat down, exhausted and humbled, and spoke aloud an apology to the forest for his hurried, disrespectful passage, did the trees part to reveal the path home. He emerged from the woods a changed man, they said, always pausing to listen to the wind in the leaves, always leaving small offerings of bread or honey at the forest's edge. But the Leshy was not the only spirit dwelling in these wild places. Where forest streams widened into pools, where rivers curved through meadows dotted with forget-me-nots and wild roses, there lived the Rusalka. These were beings of profound beauty and profound sorrow, water spirits born from tragedy and loss. Let your mind drift now to a moonlit riverbank, where willow branches trail their delicate fingers in the current. The water moves with gentle purpose, carrying the reflection of stars like scattered diamonds across its surface. It is here, in such quiet places, that the Rusalka might appear, rising from the depths with hair like flowing water, singing songs. That seemed to capture all the longing and beauty of the world. The Slavic people understood that the Rusalka were the spirits of young women who had died before their time, often by drowning, sometimes by heartbreak or betrayal. They were not evil creatures, but beings caught between worlds, forever young, forever beautiful, forever touched by the sadness of lives unfinished. During the spring and summer months, when the water was warm and inviting, they would sometimes be seen combing their long hair by moonlight, their voices carrying across the water in songs of such haunting beauty that listeners would find tears on their cheeks without knowing why. Some Rusalka were gentle souls who watched over swimmers and fishermen, warning them of dangerous currents or guiding lost children safely to shore. Others, consumed by the pain of their earthly deaths, might enchant unwary travelers with their songs, drawing them into the water's embrace to join them in their eternal underwater dance. The stories tell of a young fisherman named Pavel who encountered such a spirit one midsummer evening. He had been casting his nets in a quiet backwater when he heard singing more beautiful than any human voice he had ever known. Following the sound, he found a maiden seated on a fallen log that extended into the water, her hair silver in the moonlight, her dress seeming to shimmer between white silk and flowing water itself. She turned to him with eyes like deep pools, and Pavel felt his heart stop and start again. They spoke through the night, she telling him of the underwater palaces where she dwelled, of gardens of water lily that bloomed in eternal spring, of fish that sang lullabies to sleeping rivers. When dawn began to touch the eastern sky, she kissed his forehead gently and slipped beneath the surface, leaving only ripples to mark where she had been. Pavel returned every night for a month, hoping to see her again. But the wise women of his village warned him against such longing. The Rusalka's love is like the river itself, they told him. Beautiful, life-giving, but not meant for mortal hearts to hold. Eventually, Pavel learned to be content with the memory of that one perfect night, carrying its beauty with him like a private blessing for the rest of his long and happy life. Not all forest beings were as dramatic as the Leshy, or as melancholy as the Rusalka. The woods were full of smaller spirits, shy creatures who rarely showed themselves to human eyes. There were the dryads, tree spirits who lived within individual oaks or birches, their life force connected to the health of their chosen tree. Woodcutters would sometimes leave small offerings of milk or honey at the base of particularly magnificent trees, asking permission before taking any wood, ensuring that the spirit within would not be offended. Then there were the Vadianoi water, spirits more ancient and wilder than the Rusalka, dwelling in the deepest parts of rivers and lakes. Unlike their feminine counterparts, these beings were described as old men with long green beards made of water weeds, their skin covered with scales, their laughter like the sound of water rushing over stones. They were keepers of drowned souls, sometimes malevolent, sometimes merely indifferent to human concerns, ruling their underwater kingdoms with the authority of centuries. In the high mountain forests lived the Polovoi, field spirits who watched over the boundary places where forest met meadow, where wild things met cultivated land. Farmers would catch glimpses of them at twilight, small figures dancing in the tall grass at the forest's edge, their movements causing the grain to bend and sway in patterns that seemed to spell out messages in a language older than words. All of these beings shared certain qualities that reflected the Slavic understanding of the natural world. They were neither entirely separate from humans, nor entirely alien to human experience. They could be helpful or harmful, generous or vindictive, depending on how they were approached. They demanded respect, not worship, understanding, not servitude. They were reminders that the world was full of consciousness and intelligence beyond the human, that every place had its guardians, every natural feature its indwelling spirit. As Christianity spread through Slavic lands, many of these forest beings faded from active belief, but they never entirely disappeared. They lived on in folk tales told around winter fires, in warnings given to children about wandering too far into the woods alone, in the superstitions that made farmers leave the corners of their fields unharvested as offerings to the spirits of the wild places. Even today, in the deep forests of Eastern Europe, there are those who claim to sense the presence of these ancient guardians. Hikers speak of feeling watched when they walk alone through old-growth woods, of hearing singing where no human voices should be, of finding their paths mysteriously smooth or inexplicably tangled, depending on the spirit in which they entered. The forest. Let yourself rest now in this ancient understanding, this knowledge that the world is far more alive and aware than our modern minds usually imagine. Feel yourself settling into the soft earth of a forest clearing, your back against the warm bark of an ancient oak. The leshy watches over your sleep with eyes like green shadows, while somewhere nearby, a stream carries the gentle songs of the rusalka toward distant seas. In this place, between waking and dreaming, between the human world and the realm of spirits, you are perfectly safe, perfectly held by the ancient wisdom of the forest. The spirits of these old woods ask nothing of you but respect and wonder, offering in return the deep peace that comes from knowing you are part of something infinitely larger and more mysterious than yourself. Rest now, and let the forest keep its watch over your dreams, as it has kept watch over countless dreamers for thousands of years, patient and eternal as the turning of seasons, gentle as moss growing on stone, profound as the roots that connect all living things in their deep, slow dance through time. In the gentle twilight between our forest dreams and the next chapter of this ancient story, let us drift toward the village clearings where the Slavic people gathered to celebrate the turning wheel of seasons. These were not merely festivals of entertainment, but sacred observances that connected human hearts to the great rhythms of earth and sky, moments when the veil between the everyday world and the realm of spirits grew thin as morning mist. Settle deeper into comfort now, and imagine yourself transported to a summer evening in a Slavic village 1,000 years ago. The longest day of the year approaches, and the air itself seems to shimmer with anticipation. This is the time of Kopala night, the most magical celebration in the Slavic calendar, when fire and water, earth and sky would join in ancient ceremony. To ensure the fertility of the coming harvest. As dusk deepens into true darkness, you can see fires beginning to bloom across the landscape like earthbound stars. Each family, each village has built their bonfire with careful reverence, using wood gathered from 7 different trees, blessed by the eldest woman of the community. The flames leap high into the star-scattered sky, sending spirals of sparks dancing upward to join the celestial fires above. Young couples, their faces golden in the firelight, join hands and leap together over the flames. This is not mere sport, but profound ritual. Those who clear the fire while still holding hands are blessed with love that will endure through all seasons. Those who stumble or release their grip must wait another year to attempt this test of their bond. The fires themselves are believed to carry away misfortune and illness, purifying all who dare to leap through their cleansing embrace. But Kopala night holds even deeper mysteries. As the evening progresses, young maidens slip away from the firelight toward the dark rivers and streams. They carry wreaths woven from herbs gathered at sunset, each flower and leaf chosen for its protective or prophetic power. Fern blossoms, which bloom only on this most magical of nights, are particularly prized, for they are said to grant the power to find hidden treasures and understand the language of animals. Watch now as these young women float their wreaths upon the moving water, their white dresses ghostly in the moonlight. The direction the wreath travels, how quickly the current takes it, whether it catches on a branch or flows freely toward the sea. All of these signs speak of the future. A wreath that floats straight and true promises a year of good fortune. One that circles back toward shore suggests that patience will be required before dreams come to fruition. Some of the bravest maidens wade into the water itself, believing that the rivers on Kopala night carry special powers of purification and prophecy. The rusalka, usually so dangerous to mortals, are said to be benevolent on this night, sharing their knowledge of hidden things with those pure enough of heart to receive it. The men, meanwhile, search the midnight forests for the legendary fern flower. That bloom which appears for just one moment at the stroke of midnight on Kapala night. To find this flower is to gain wisdom beyond measure, the ability to see through illusions, to understand the speech of trees and stones. But the quest is perilous, for the forest spirits test each seeker's courage and worthiness through trials of fear and temptation. As the night wears on, the celebrations take on otherworldly quality. Voices raised in ancient songs seem to harmonize with the wind in the trees. Dancers move in patterns that mirror the wheeling of stars overhead. Young people crown themselves with oak leaves and wildflowers, temporarily taking on the roles of forest spirits and nature deities. The boundary between human and divine dissolves in the intoxication of ritual and community. But Kapala night was just one jewel in the crown of the Slavic sacred year. Each season brought its own ceremonies, its own ways of honoring the forces that governed life and death, growth and harvest, love and loss. Spring arrived with festivals celebrating the return of life to the frozen earth. Maslenitsa, the week before Lent in later times, but originally a much older celebration of winters. Defeat filled villages with the scent of pancakes and honey, symbols of the returning sun. Effigies of winter, made from straw and old clothes, were burned in great bonfires or cast into rivers, carrying away the accumulated sorrows and hardships of the cold months. During these spring celebrations, young people would gather in meadows to weave chains of early flowers, creating living mandalas that they would hang from trees or float on streams as offerings to the spirits of renewal. The first thunder of spring was greeted with special joy, for it announced that Perun had awakened from his winter rest and was ready once again to battle the forces of chaos and stagnation. Summer brought not only Kapala night, but a succession of festivals celebrating the abundance of the growing season. The first fruits of the harvest were always offered to the gods before any human tasted them. Grain sheaves were woven into human shapes and dressed in fine clothes, then paraded through the fields in ceremonies that ensured the continuing favor of Makosh, the great Earth Mother. As autumn approached, the festivals took on a more solemn tone, acknowledging the approaching death of the year while celebrating the gifts of the harvest. The last sheaf of grain to be cut was treated with special reverence, believed to contain the spirit of the grain itself. This sacred bundle was kept in the home throughout the winter, protecting the family from hunger and want, then planted with the first seeds of spring to ensure the continuation of the cycle. The autumn celebrations also honored the ancestors, those beloved dead who were believed to return during this season to visit their living descendants. Extra places were set at tables, special foods prepared for those who could no longer eat, but who might still be nourished by the love and remembrance of their families. Candles burned in windows to guide the spirits home, and stories were told late into the night, keeping alive the memories and wisdom of those who had passed beyond the veil. Winter brought its own sacred observances, focused on the return of light during the darkest time of year. The winter solstice was marked by ceremonies that encouraged the sun to begin its journey back toward spring. Bonfires blazed against the cold and dark, their flames a promise that warmth and light would return. Homes were decorated with evergreen branches, symbols of life persisting through the season of apparent death. These winter festivals often lasted for 12 days, a miniature year that mirrored the great cycle of seasons. Each day had its own rituals, its own significance. Divination was particularly powerful during this time, when the year stood poised between ending and beginning. Young women would pour molten wax into cold water, reading their futures in the shapes that formed. Seeds were scattered on hot surfaces, their patterns of popping and burning interpreted as messages from the spirit world. Throughout all these celebrations, certain elements remained constant. Fire was always present, representing the divine spark that animated all life. Water played its part too, as the source of purification and the medium through which prayers and offerings could be carried to the spirit world. Flowers, herbs, and grain connected the celebrants to the plant kingdom, acknowledging their dependence on the green world for sustenance and beauty. Music and dance were not mere entertainment, but forms of prayer, ways of aligning human rhythm with the great rhythms of cosmos and season. The circular dances that were performed at these festivals mirrored the wheel of the year, the cyclical nature of all existence. Singers would improvise verses that spoke of their hopes and fears, their gratitude and needs, creating spontaneous liturgies that rose like incense toward the star-filled sky. These festivals were also times of community bonding, when the normal structures of daily life were temporarily dissolved in favor of more primal connections. Social hierarchies softened in the firelight. Young and old danced together. The wisdom of grandmothers was honored alongside the strength of young men. Even the spirits of field and forest were invited to join the celebration, their presence acknowledged through ritual and offering. The foods prepared for these occasions were themselves forms of prayer. Bread baked in special shapes carried symbolic meanings. Honey cakes represented the sweetness of life. Fruits and vegetables were arranged in patterns that honored the four directions, the elements, the phases of the moon. To eat such food was to participate in communion with the forces that sustained all existence. As Christianity gradually spread through Slavic lands, many of these ancient festivals were absorbed into the new faith rather than simply disappearing. Kapala Night became the feast of St. John the Baptist. Spring renewal festivals merged with Easter celebrations. The honoring of ancestors found new expression in All Saints' Day. The outer forms changed, but the deep human need to mark the turning seasons, to celebrate community, to acknowledge the sacred in daily life, continued to find expression. Even today, in villages across Eastern Europe, echoes of these ancient celebrations can still be felt. Midsummer fires still burn in some places. Wreaths are still floated on rivers. Children still weave flowers into crowns and dance in meadows, thick with summer grass. The old gods may have new names, or no names at all, but the fundamental human impulse to celebrate our connection to the natural world remains as strong as ever. Let yourself drift now into thou, the peaceful aftermath of such a celebration. The fires have burned low, leaving only glowing embers that pulse like sleeping hearts. The dancers have returned to their homes, carrying with them the satisfaction of ritual properly performed, of community bonds renewed, of connection with the divine briefly but intensely experienced. You rest in a meadow still warm from the day's sun, still fragrant with trampled grass and scattered flower petals. Above you, the stars wheel in their ancient patterns, the same constellations that look down on countless generations of Slavic celebrants. The night air carries the faint sound of a river flowing toward the sea, bearing the prayers and offerings of the faithful toward whatever realm receives such gifts. In this sacred space between celebration and rest, between the human world and the realm of spirits, you are cradled by the same forces that sustained our ancestors. The earth beneath you pulses with life, connected to every other living thing through invisible roots of energy and love. The sky above you sparkles with infinite possibility, each star a reminder that you are part of something vast and beautiful beyond all imagining.
As we drift away from the warmth of festival fires and the echo of ancient songs, we find ourselves standing at the threshold of great change. The wheel of time has turned, carrying us forward several centuries to witness one of history's most profound transformations. The old gods have not yet departed, but already their footsteps grow fainter on the forest paths. Already their names are spoken more softly, with glances cast toward the horizon where new bells toll across the Slavic lands. Rest deeper now into this moment of transition, and let your mind's eye witness the slow, complex dance between old faith anew, a transformation that would reshape the spiritual landscape of Eastern Europe forever. This was not a sudden conquest, but a gradual weaving together of beliefs, like streams converging into a great river, each contributing something essential to the flow. Picture yourself in a Slavic village in the year 988, when Prince Vladimir of Kiev made his momentous decision to embrace Christianity as the official religion of his realm. The morning mist rises from the Dnieper River as a crowd gathers on its banks. Among them stand families who have worshipped Perun and Makosh for countless generations, their hearts heavy with uncertainty as they watch the great statue of the thunder god being pulled down from its sacred hill. The wooden idol, carved with loving skill and adorned with silver and gold, crashes into the river with a sound like breaking thunder. Some of the older people weep openly, not from rebellion against the new faith, but from the profound sadness of watching their childhood certainties dissolve like morning frost. They had danced around this god's altar, brought him offerings of honey and grain, called upon his protection in times of storm and war. Now he floats away on the current, destined for the rapids downstream, where he will be broken apart by rocks and scattered to the sea. Yet this moment, dramatic as it appears, tells only part of a much larger story. The coming of Christianity to the Slavic world was not simply a tale of conquest and conversion, but a complex process of adaptation and synthesis that would unfold over centuries. The new religion did not arrive in an empty land, but in a realm already rich with spiritual understanding, already alive with the presence of the sacred. The Christian missionaries who ventured into these forests and river valleys were often wise enough to recognize this truth. They saw in the Slavic reverence for nature an echo of their own understanding of God's creation. They found in the Slavic sense of community and hospitality reflections of Christian charity. Rather than simply destroying what they found, many of these early evangelists sought to build bridges between the old wisdom and the new revelation. This process of bridge building can be seen most clearly in how the great gods of the Slavic pantheon found new life within the Christian framework. Perun, the thunder god who ruled the heavens and brought the rain, became associated with the prophet Elijah, who had called down fire from heaven and ascended to paradise in a chariot of flame. The old prayers for protection from lightning and blessing for the crops were gradually transferred to this biblical figure, allowing continuity of devotion even as the theological framework changed. Makosh, the beloved Earth Mother who had presided over childbirth and harvest, fertility and the work of women's hands, found her role assumed by the Virgin Mary. The ancient sites where Makosh had been worshipped became shrines to the Mother of God. The same hands that had once woven flowers for the old goddess now wove them for the new. The same hearts that had trusted in Makosh's protection now placed that trust in Mary's intercession. This transformation was not always smooth or complete. In many villages, the old goddess and the new continued to exist side by side in the popular imagination, their attributes blending in ways that would have surprised theologians in distant Constantinople or Rome. Peasant women might say prayers to Mary while following rituals that had been sacred to Makosh for 1,000 years. They saw no contradiction in this, for to them the divine feminine presence that blessed their work and protected their children was one continuous reality. Expressed through different names across the centuries, the spirits of forest and water proved even more resilient to change. Christianity had clear teachings about God and Christ, about saints and angels, but it had less to say about the everyday mysteries of field and stream, grove and meadow. The Leshy and the Rusalka, the Domovoy and the Polovoy slipped quietly into the margins of the new faith, neither endorsed nor entirely condemned, but surviving in the twilight realm of folk belief and whispered story. Village priests, often recruited from local families and steeped in the old ways themselves, frequently chose to accommodate rather than confront these persistent beliefs. They might warn against placing too much trust in forest spirits, but they would also bless the bread left out for the domovoy, understanding that the gesture spoke of a fundamental human need to live in harmony with unseen forces. They preached about angels and demons, but they did not always insist that every mysterious presence in the natural world must fit neatly into one category or the other. This flexibility allowed for remarkable continuities between the old religious practices and the new. The great seasonal festivals that had marked the Slavic year were gradually transformed into Christian celebrations, but they retained much of their original character. Kopala Night became the feast of John the Baptist, but young people still leaped over fires and floated wreaths on rivers. The spring celebrations of renewal became Easter festivals, but they still involved many of the same rituals of purification and blessing that had honored the return of life to the frozen earth. The process of Christianization also brought profound changes to Slavic society. The new religion came with a written tradition, introducing literacy to cultures that had previously preserved their wisdom through oral transmission. Monasteries became centers of learning where ancient manuscripts were copied and new ones created. The beautiful illuminated Gospels and theological treatises produced in these scriptoriums represented a flowering of intellectual and artistic achievement that would have been impossible under the old dispensation. Yet something was also lost. In this transformation, the intimate connection between human community and natural rhythm that had characterized Slavic paganism became more abstract under Christian influence. The gods who had once walked the forest paths and spoken through the wind in the trees were replaced by a deity whose primary residence was understood to be in heaven, rather than in the immediate landscape. The sacred groves where families had gathered for generations to honor their ancestors were sometimes cut down to make way for stone. Churches built according to foreign architectural traditions. The role of women in religious life also changed significantly. Under the old system, priestesses and wise women had played crucial roles as intermediaries between the human and divine worlds. The new religion, with its emphasis on male clergy and its suspicion of practices associated with the feminine, gradually marginalized these traditional female religious leaders. Some became Christian nuns, finding new ways to express their spiritual calling, but others simply faded from official religious life, their wisdom preserved only in the informal networks of village folk healing and midwifery. The transformation was not without resistance. Historical records speak of uprisings and rebellions, of secret gatherings where the old gods were honored in defiance of official policy. In some remote regions, pagan practices persisted openly for centuries after the formal conversion of the ruling class. Even in areas where Christianity took firm root, elements of the old faith survived in disguised forms, woven so deeply into the fabric of daily life that they became invisible to outside observers. By the 13th century, the process of Christianization was largely complete across the Slavic world, but the result was something far more complex than simple religious replacement. What emerged was a unique synthesis, a Christianity colored by deep pagan roots, a faith that spoke to both the universal human longing for transcendence and the specifically Slavic understanding of the sacred as immanent in the natural world. The village churches that rose throughout these lands bore architectural details that echoed the curves of ancient sacred groves. The icons painted for these churches sometimes showed Christ and the saints with faces that recalled the old gods, and in poses that suggested familiarity with forest paths rather than heavenly thrones. The prayers said in these churches often included petitions for the blessing of crops and animals, for protection from storm and flood, concerns that would have been perfectly familiar to worshippers of Perun and Makosh.
In the deepest sense, the old gods had not died, but had transformed, their essential functions absorbed into new theological structures, their archetypal power redirected, but not diminished. The thunder god still brought the rain, but now he did so as Saint Elijah. The Earth Mother still protected women in childbirth, but now she did so as the Virgin Mary. The ancestors still watched over their descendants, but now they did so as Christian saints rather than household spirits. This synthesis created a form of Christianity that was both authentically Christian and authentically Slavic, a faith that could speak to peasants working in fields that had been sacred to their ancestors for millennia, a religion that found the divine as readily in the whisper of wind through grain as in the formal liturgies of cathedral worship. As we rest now in the gentle sadness of this great transformation, we can feel the weight of all that was lost and the wonder of all that was preserved. The old gods sleep, but they sleep the sleep of seeds buried in winter earth, their essence preserved in story and song, in ritual and remembrance, waiting perhaps for some future spring when they might bloom again in new forms. The bells that ring across these transformed lands carry both Christian summons and pagan echoes, calling the faithful to worship in buildings that stand on ground made sacred by 10,000 years of prayer. In their bronze voices, we can hear the complexity of human faith, the way that spiritual truth adapts and persists across the centuries, changing its outer garments, but preserving its essential core. Sleep now in this knowledge of continuity, within change, of transformation that honors what came before, even as it reaches toward what is yet to come. Rest in the understanding that the deepest spiritual truths are too large to be contained by any single tradition, too vital to be destroyed by any historical upheaval. They flow like underground rivers through the landscape of human consciousness, surfacing in new springs whenever the conditions are right, nourishing the spiritual life of each generation in its own time and place. In the quiet space between sleeping and waking, between memory and dream, we arrive at the gentle conclusion of our journey through the ancient Slavic world. The old gods have not vanished entirely, but have become something softer, more subtle, like the scent of wildflowers that lingers in the air long after the bloom has faded. They live now in the realm of whispers and echoes, in the stories that grandmothers tell by firelight, in the half-remembered songs that rise unbidden to our lips. When we walk alone through deep woods, settle yourself more deeply into comfort. Now, and let us explore together this twilight realm where the ancient and the modern meet, where the wisdom of our ancestors continues to flow like an underground stream through the landscape of contemporary life. For though the great temples have crumbled and the formal rituals have been forgotten, the essential truths that the Slavic people discovered about living in harmony with the natural world have never truly died. Picture yourself walking through a village in modern Eastern Europe, perhaps in rural Poland or the Czech countryside, the mountains of Slovakia or the forests of Russia. The outward appearance has changed dramatically from the settlements our ancestors knew. Paved roads have replaced muddy tracks. Electric lights shine where once only fire provided illumination after dark, and the ancient wooden houses have given way to structures of brick and concrete. Yet if you know how to look, if you understand the subtle language of continuity and adaptation, you can still see the old patterns everywhere. In the garden behind a modest house, an elderly woman tends her herbs with the same reverent attention that her ancestors showed to the sacred plants. Of Makosh, she may not consciously invoke the Earth Mother's blessing as she works, but her hands move with inherited knowledge, and she whispers the same protective words over her healing teas that have been spoken for 1,000 years. Watch as she hangs bundles of dried mugwort and vervain from the rafters of her kitchen, the same herbs that were once gathered on Kopala night to ward off evil spirits. She might tell you, if asked, that these are simply old family remedies, traditional ways of keeping the house healthy and peaceful. But in her careful timing of the harvest, in her knowledge of which phase of the moon brings the greatest potency, to each plant, in her understanding of the subtle energies that flow through the growing world, she carries forward the wisdom of countless generations of wise women who served as intermediaries between the human and natural realms. In the cities too, beneath the surface of modern life, the old currents continue to flow. Young people gather in parks at midsummer, ostensibly for secular festivals and concerts, but their celebration of the longest day carries echoes of ancient fire ceremonies. They may not leap over flames or float wreaths on rivers, but they stay awake through the short night. They crown themselves with flowers. They feel in their bones the magic of the solstice, even if they have no words for what moves them. The stories that survive carry perhaps the most direct connection to our ancestral past. In regions where the old fairy tales are still told, children learn about witches who live in huts on chicken legs, about firebirds and water spirits, about brave heroes who must outwit the forces of chaos and darkness. These stories, which scholars now recognize as preserving elements of pre-Christian mythology, continue to shape young imaginations, planting seeds of wonder and respect for the mysterious powers that dwell beyond the borders of everyday experience. Baba Yaga, the terrifying and helpful witch of Slavic folklore, carries within her wild character clear traces of ancient goddess figures. Sometimes she appears as a hideous crone who devours travelers, sometimes as a wise woman who provides magical assistance to those pure of heart. In her dual nature, we can see reflections of Makosh in her darker aspect, the Earth Mother, who brings both life and death, who demands respect and offers terrible wisdom to those brave enough to seek her guidance. The Russian firebird, that magical creature whose capture drives so many folktale heroes on impossible quests, shines with something of the solar symbolism that once surrounded Perun and other sky gods. The hero who seeks the firebird must pass through tests of courage and cunning that mirror the synth. Initiation rituals once performed by young warriors seeking the thunder god's favor. The prize he wins, the marriage to a beautiful princess, and the rule of a just kingdom, represents the harmony between human and divine that was the goal of all ancient religious practice. Even in the realm of high culture, the influence of Slavic mythology persists. The great classical composers of Eastern Europe, figures like Dvorak and Mussorgsky, Tchaikovsky and Stravinsky, drew inspiration from the folk melodies and legends of their homelands. In their symphonies and ballets, we can hear the voices of forest spirits, the thunder of Perun's chariot, the wild dances of Kopala night, the rite of spring, with its shocking rhythms and primitive power, brought the ancient fertility rituals of the Slavic people onto the stages of modern concert halls, scandalizing audiences who had forgotten their own ancestors' relationship with such primal forces. In recent decades, a remarkable phenomenon has emerged across the Western world. As industrial civilization has grown more complex and alienating, as our separation from the natural world has become more complete, many people have begun to feel a deep hunger for more authentic forms of spiritual connection. This longing has led to the revival of ancient traditions, including the pre-Christian religions of Europe. Modern practitioners of Slavic neo-paganism, who call themselves Rodnovers or followers of the native faith, gather in forest clearings to honor Perun and Nakash once again. They study the fragments of ancient mythology that have survived in folklore and historical records, reconstructing as best they can the rituals and beliefs of their ancestors. They celebrate the old festivals with ceremonies adapted to contemporary understanding, seeking to reconnect with the wisdom that was nearly lost, but never entirely forgotten. These modern practitioners understand that they cannot simply step back into the past, that the world has changed too dramatically for any complete restoration of ancient ways. Instead, they seek to distill the essential insights of their ancestors, to find ways of honoring the sacred in nature that speak to contemporary hearts while remaining true to traditional wisdom. They see in the old gods not literal supernatural beings to be worshipped, but archetypal forces that represent different aspects of the human relationship with the cosmos. Prun becomes, for them, a symbol of the principle of order and justice, the divine power that maintains cosmic balance against the forces of chaos. Makash represents the nurturing, creative aspect of existence, the feminine principle that brings forth life and sustains it through all the cycles of growth and decay. Vels embodies the necessary darkness that gives meaning to light, the wise serpent power that dwells in the depths and brings renewal through apparent destruction. Yet the revival of ancient spirituality is not the only way that Slavic mythology continues to influence contemporary life. In the environmental movement, we can see echoes of the old reverence for nature as sacred, the understanding that human beings are not separate from, but intimately connected to the web of life that surrounds us. The modern recognition that forests and rivers, mountains and prairies have their own intrinsic value regardless of their usefulness to human purposes reflects something of the animistic worldview that saw spirits dwelling in every aspect of the natural world. The current interest in sustainable agriculture, in permaculture and organic farming, in working with natural cycles rather than against them, carries forward the ancient wisdom of peoples who understood themselves to be partners with rather than masters of the land they inhabited. The knowledge that our ancestors encoded in their agricultural festivals, their understanding of seasonal rhythms and ecological relationships, proved surprisingly relevant to contemporary efforts to heal the damage done by industrial methods of food production. Even in the realm of psychology and healing, the old wisdom finds new applications. The recognition that human beings need connection to nature for their psychological well-being, that we suffer when cut off from the rhythms and relationships that shaped our evolution over millennia, echoes the Slavic understanding of the human soul as intimately connected to the souls of animals, plants, and landscape features. The therapeutic use of ritual and ceremony, the understanding that certain experiences require symbolic rather than purely rational approaches, reflects something of the ancient shamanic traditions that once helped Slavic communities navigate times of crisis and transition. Modern therapy may not invoke the spirits of forest and stream, but it increasingly recognizes the healing power of metaphor, of guided imagery that reconnects clients with archetypal forces and natural wisdom. As we rest now in the gentle embrace of these continuing influences, we can feel the truth of what the ancients always knew. The deepest spiritual insights are not bound to any particular historical period or cultural form. They arise from the basic facts of human existence, our need for meaning and connection, our longing to understand our place in the vast mystery of existence, our desire to live in harmony with forces greater than ourselves. The gods of ancient Slavs spoke to these universal needs in language and imagery drawn from the specific landscapes and life experiences of their people. But the needs themselves are timeless, and so the wisdom encoded in their stories and rituals continues to speak to human hearts, even when filtered through the transformations of centuries and the translations required by changing cultural contexts. In this moment of quiet reflection, as our journey through the world of Slavic mythology draws to its close, we can feel ourselves connected to that long chain of human beings who have gazed up at the same stars, walked through similar forests, felt their hearts lift at the return of spring, and their spirits settle into the peaceful darkness of winter. The particular names they gave to their experiences of the sacred may have changed, but the experiences themselves continue, as immediate and transformative as ever. The whispers of the old gods have not fallen silent. They speak in every wind that moves through growing grain, in every thunder that rolls across summer skies, in every stream that carries winter snow toward the waiting sea. They speak in the hands of every gardener who tends their plants with love, in the voice of every storyteller who keeps alive the old tales, in the heart of every person who pauses in their busy life to notice the beauty of the natural world. Ancient Slavic understanding of the sacred is present everywhere, in every moment, in every interaction between conscious beings, offers a vision of spiritual life that transcends any particular religious framework. It suggests that we need not seek the divine in distant heavens or abstract concepts, but can find it immediately present in the texture of daily existence, in our relationships with the land that sustains us, and the creatures who share our journey through time. Let yourself rest now in this ancient wisdom, this understanding that you are never truly alone, never cut off from the sacred sources of life and meaning. Feel yourself supported by the earth beneath you, nourished by the air you breathe, warmed by the fire of your own life, cleansed by the water that flows through your veins. These are the same elements that the old gods embodied, the same forces that have sustained human life through all the millennia of our species' journey. In dreams tonight, you may find yourself walking through birch forests, silver in moonlight, or standing by rivers where ancient songs still echo in the sound of flowing water. You may meet figures from the old stories, or simply feel the presence of the sacred in the quiet beauty of natural places. Whether these experiences come as literal dreams or as the subtle influence of expanded awareness, they connect you to the unbroken chain of human, spiritual seeking that stretches back to our earliest ancestors and forward to generations yet unborn. The old gods sleep lightly, ready to awaken whenever human hearts turn toward them with genuine reverence and need. They wait in the spaces between thoughts, in the pause between breath and breath, in the threshold moments when the ordinary world grows thin and wonder breaks through. They are the whispering legacy that every generation receives from those who came before, the inheritance of wisdom that can never be entirely lost as long as there are human hearts open to receive it. And so we come to the gentle close of our journey through the mist-veiled realms of ancient Slavic wisdom. The stories have been told, the mysteries shared, the forgotten names spoken once again into the listening darkness. Like travelers returning from a distant land, we carry with us now the treasures we have gathered, the images and insights that will continue to unfold their meaning in the quiet hours of reflection that lie ahead. Let yourself settle now into the deepest comfort, feeling your body sinking gratefully into softness, your breathing naturally slowing to match the ancient rhythms we have been exploring together. The urgency of the modern world falls away like a discarded cloak, leaving you free to rest in the timeless peace that our ancestors knew, the profound tranquility that comes from understanding your place in the great web of existence. Picture yourself now in a grove of silver birch trees, their white bark luminous in the gentle moonlight that filters through delicate leaves. This is a sacred space, blessed by centuries of prayers and offerings, where the boundary between the seen and unseen worlds grows thin as morning mist. The ground beneath you is soft with fallen leaves, creating a natural bed that cradles your body with the tender care of the Earth Mother herself. Above you, the stars wheel in their eternal dance, the same constellations that guided our Slavic ancestors through the long nights of winter and the brief, magical summers of their northern lands. Each point of light carries stories, memories of the gods and spirits we have encountered on this journey. There is the Great Bear, sacred to the hunters who called upon the forest spirits for guidance. There is the Swan, whose wings span the Milky Way, carrying the souls of the departed to their rest in the realm of ancestors. The night air is filled with gentle sounds that speak of life, continuing its ancient patterns. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls softly, its voice carrying echoes of the wisdom traditions that once flourished in these lands. A stream murmurs nearby, its waters singing the same songs that the Rusalka once knew by heart. The leaves above whisper secrets in a language older than words, sharing the accumulated wisdom of countless seasons of growth and rest, death and renewal. You are not alone in this sacred grove. Though you may not see them clearly, you can sense the presence of the beings we have come to know through story and song. The Domovoi keeps watch over your rest with the same gentle care he once showed to families sleeping peacefully in their woodland homes. The spirits of the forest move quietly among the trees, their footsteps no more disturbing than the fall of dew on summer grass. Perun's thunder has gentled to a distant rumble, not of storm but of profound contentment, the sound of cosmic forces at rest after the great work of creation. Makash spreads her protective mantle over the sleeping earth, ensuring that all who rest beneath her care will wake refreshed and blessed. Even Vels, the ancient serpent of the underworld, coils peacefully in the depths, his wisdom available to those who seek understanding of life's deeper mysteries. As you drift deeper into the embrace of sleep, you might feel yourself becoming part of this ancient landscape, your consciousness merging gently with the collective dreams of all who have found peace in such places. Your breath becomes the wind in the leaves. Your heartbeat joins the slow pulse of sap rising in the birch trees. Your dreams weave themselves into the great tapestry of stories that connects all living beings across the boundaries of time and space. In this state of deep rest, you may receive gifts that will enrich your waking life. Perhaps you will dream of walking forest paths where every step brings new understanding of your connection to the natural world. Perhaps you will hear songs that carry the healing wisdom of ancient traditions, melodies that will linger in your memory long after you wake. Perhaps you will simply rest in the profound peace that comes from knowing you are held by forces far greater and more benevolent than anything your daily worries can conjure. The old gods have not finished their work. They continue to weave their influence through the fabric of existence, blessing those who approach them with open hearts and quiet minds. They ask nothing more than recognition, nothing more than the kind of reverent attention you have offered by listening to their stories. In return, they offer their protection, their wisdom, their eternal presence as guides and companions on the journey of life. If you listen carefully in the space between sleeping and waking, you might hear them still. The gentle laughter of the Domovoi as he tends the fires of home and hearth. The splash of a Rusalka diving deep into moonlit waters. The rustle of leaves that might be wind, or might be the Leshy passing on his eternal rounds through the green cathedral of the forest. These sounds are not separate from you, but part of the great symphony of existence in which you play your own unique and irreplaceable part. The ancient Slavs understood this truth, lived it daily in their reverent attention to the voices of water and wind, earth and fire. Tonight, as you rest in the embrace of their wisdom, You too become part of this eternal music, your breath and heartbeat contributing to the rhythm that has sustained life on earth for countless millennia. Sleep now, deeply and peacefully, knowing that you are watched over by benevolent forces, protected by ancient wisdom, blessed by the love that flows through all creation. Let the birch trees be your guardians through the night hours, their silver bark reflecting the moonlight that has blessed countless generations of dreamers before you. The stories we have shared tonight will continue to unfold their meanings in the fertile darkness of your subconscious mind. Like seeds planted in rich earth, they will send out roots and shoots, growing into new understanding, new connections with the sacred dimensions of existence. You may find yourself noticing things you never saw before. The particular way sunlight falls through leaves, the sound water makes as it flows over stones, the feeling of wind carrying messages from distant places. These are the gifts of the Feng, old gods, freely given to all who have ears to hear and hearts to receive. They are your inheritance as a human being, part of the legacy that connects you to every ancestor who ever gazed up at stars and wondered about their place in the vast mystery of existence. Rest now in this knowledge, this blessing, this eternal connection. Let yourself be carried gently into the realm of dreams, where the boundaries between possible and impossible dissolve, where ancient wisdom speaks in symbols and images that bypass the rational mind and touch the soul directly. Sleep. Well, blessed traveler, sleep peacefully among the birch trees, under the watchful stars, in the care of spirits who have waited patiently through all the centuries for hearts like yours to remember, to listen, to receive the gifts they have always been ready to give. Whispers of the old Slavic world will continue through your dreams and into your waking life, a gentle reminder that magic is never far away, that wonder is always available to those who know how to look, that the sacred dwells as close as your next breath, as near as the beating of your heart. Sweet dreams, and may you wake tomorrow with something of their ancient peace still glowing softly in your soul.